Recently, I found myself reading an article that I'd never come across before. It's from the fandom.com Super Smash Bros. Page that talks about characters that were cut or considered for each Smash Bros. Title, starting from the first one all the way up to Ultimate. I remember hearing about some of these, but some of these were completely new to me, and I thought it was really fascinating. I'm linking the article in the description in case you haven't seen it and want to check it out, but reading this article got me thinking, man, some of these characters would have been so cool to see in these games. It had me longing, wishing that some of these had actually happened. While on this train of thought, I started thinking, if I could go back in history and add one character to each Super Smash Bros. Game, who would I pick? It's an interesting question, so I thought I'd make a video to discuss some of my choices and the rationale behind them. Now remember, these are my personal picks, so I tried to use a bit of objective logic, but overall, they're the characters that I myself would personally put in the game, if I was directing it. For most of these, it was really hard to just choose one character, as there's plenty of characters that would be amazing for each of these games. So for each, I'm going to talk about a few characters, but for all the games, I eventually did decide on one. Before we start, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit that subscribe button because we do a ton of Nintendo content here. I know a lot of you love these Super Smash Bros. Discussion videos, and we'll be doing plenty more of these, as well as reviews and retrospectives on classic Nintendo games. Alright everybody, here we go. Here are my choices for one character I would add to each Super Smash Bros. Game throughout history. The original Smash Bros. For N64 had a perfect roster for what it was trying to accomplish. All the Nintendo heroes you could imagine at the time, with unique movesets, all fighting against each other. It had all the core heroes, and even some more obscure additions like Jigglypuff. It was the first time seeing 3D models for many of these characters, such as Ness and Samus, so it was an exciting new frontier to conquer, no matter who you chose. And so, it was a huge deal for any of the characters to be included in this game. We got to control Fox McCloud and Captain Falcon outside of their vehicles, and we even got to control Luigi in 3D. There was a lot of firsts in Smash 64, but the one thing they didn't include in this roster is any villain characters. Starting off thinking about this question for Smash 64, I was looking to see if any iconic Nintendo heroes were missing from the roster, and though there are, such as Peach and Princess Zelda, their series were already represented. As of the Nintendo franchises around and popular back at Smash 64's release, the bases were pretty much covered when it came to hero characters. And that's when my thought process went to the villains. And of course, when we're talking about Nintendo villains, we have to include Bowser. My choice for one character to add to Super Smash Bros. 64's roster is definitely Bowser. Though he would be the one villain on the roster, he would add that element that I think is so important to the series going forward. Being able to choose the evil side and play as the villain. Adding Bowser in Super Smash Bros. 64 would not only be a perfect fit, but he would add the villain element to the original game. It would be so cool to see a lower polygon N64 model of Bowser within Smash 64, and the more that I think about it, the more I wish that this did happen. Melee is a game that really blew the roof off when it came to new additions to Smash. Not only did Melee add villains into the mix, but they also included important characters from existing franchises and even added some new ones to the game. Adding villains like Bowser and Ganondorf, plus the addition of retro throwback characters like the Ice Climbers and Mr. Game & Watch, and even introducing the Fire Emblem characters Marth and Roy, were huge moments in the history of Smash. Melee really didn't leave a lot to be desired, but if there's one key thing in Super Smash Bros. Today that Melee did not include, it's the third-party character. That made me think, if I could add a third-party character to Melee, which one would it be? And the choice was, to me, obvious. Sonic the Hedgehog would be a perfect fit for Melee. But this is not the character I'm gonna choose. I don't think adding one third-party character to the game, even if it is Sonic, feels right for Melee. I like that Melee includes only first-party Nintendo characters, and I want to stick to that. Even though Melee succeeded in my desire to add villain characters to the mix, there's only two, Bowser and Ganondorf. What I really wish was added to Melee was another villain character. This got me thinking, which one would it be? I narrowed it down to two choices, Wolf from the Star Fox series, and King Dedede from Kirby. My eventual choice was King Dedede. I came to this conclusion for a couple reasons. First, Star Fox already got an additional rep with Falco being added into the mix for Melee, but Kirby still stood alone as the sole representative of his franchise. In that way, I think it's only fitting that King DDD be added to the Melee roster instead of Wolf. Plus, overall, I think King DDD makes for a more interesting fighter. First, he's another heavy character to add to the mix, and the roster is a little bit light on those. Also, Wolf is pretty similar in kit to Falco and Fox, whereas King DDD would be something completely different. A heavy character with multiple jumps, the use of a suction ability, and the mallet, it would fit perfectly within Melee, and I think would add a nice extra element to the existing roster. According to the article I mentioned earlier, King DDD was actually considered for Super Smash Bros. 64, but personally, I think he would have fit perfectly as one more fighter for Super Smash Bros. Melee. Super Smash Bros. Brawl was the first game to introduce third-party characters, such as Solid Snake and Sonic, and it also marked a point where more new Nintendo IP were becoming increasingly popular, and the argument for including several other series in Smash began to grow stronger. According to the article, characters like Crystal from Star Fox Adventures, the Mii Fighters, and even the Villager from Animal Crossing were considered, and these are all great choices. But what really bugged me about Brawl's roster is the fact that some characters were scrapped. Notably, Dr. Mario, Roy, and Mewtwo were not added to Brawl's roster, so they didn't make the transition from Melee to Brawl. And this is what brought me to my decision. Mewtwo is such a cool character and it was so hyped that he was added to Melee. A character this exciting and this popular should never be cut from a game. That's why I think if I could go back and add one character to Brawl's roster, it would definitely be Mewtwo. Sure, there's part of me that would like to add a character that we've never seen in Smash period, but going back and appending Mewtwo to the Brawl roster just seems right. Dr. Mario is a clone character of Mario, so I could see the reasoning of him being cut if there was development constraints. And Roy is a less popular character who's not as iconic as most of the rest of the roster, but there's no excuse for Mewtwo to be cut. The original most powerful Pokemon should always have a spot on any Super Smash Bros. Roster, and that's why if I had one choice to add a character back into Super Smash Bros. Brawl, it would definitely be Mewtwo. For Smash 4 or Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS, I remember being heavily into roster speculation and the leak cycle at this point. I remember when supposed leaks were coming out online and rumored newcomers were being discussed. This is such a nostalgic part of Smash history for me, and when thinking about this, I considered one of the rumored characters to be the one that I wanted added to the game. And one of the characters that I got really excited about when these supposed leaks were coming out were the chorus boys from Rhythm Heaven. I enjoyed what I played of Rhythm Heaven and I remembered these characters. I thought it would be so cool to finally have a triple character. Not a triple character like the Pokemon Trainer where the three characters come out separately, but instead a character where there's three characters on the screen at the same time. I remember during the leak cycle thinking the Chorus Boys rumor was true, and I remember getting ready to main them. I was saying to friends that I was going to main the Chorus Kids once Smash 4 came out, but when the game eventually came out and the whole roster was revealed, the Chorus Kids were nowhere to be found. I was obviously disappointed, but I ended up loving Smash for the 3DS and Wii U just the same. I look back fondly on the Chorus Kids leak, but actually, the one character that I would add to Smash for the Wii U and 3DS isn't them. Now if I were to go back, the character that I definitely would add is Girahim from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. I remember thinking that Girahim was all but a lock for this game. A new, highly memorable, highly unique Zelda enemy with a unique fighting style in his game that would translate perfectly to a Smash Bros. Moveset. I thought there was no way that Girahim would not make the roster of this game, but unfortunately I was wrong. I remember drawing up my own roster and Girahim was one of the first newcomers that I would always put down. And when I think about Smash newcomers today, Girahim still comes to mind. His time has likely passed due to Skyward Sword being over a decade years old now, but his omission from the Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS roster will always seem egregious to me, and that's why if I could add one more character to that roster, I would do Girahim some justice and add him over anyone else. And that leaves us with the current Smash game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Ultimate's roster, as of the time of this recording, has one more character slot that needs to be filled. I've made videos discussing first party, third party, and Echo Fighters I'd like to see in the game, but if I were to have my choice, the one character I would put in the game, I actually didn't mention in any of those videos. Personally, I think this character is unlikely, but it would be my personal favorite pick to be added to Smash, period. It's a character from a game series that I have great love and nostalgia for, and I even voted for this character back during the Smash ballot for Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. My number one pie-in-the-sky character that I would add as the last fighter for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is Isaac from Golden Sun. Ever since I played Golden Sun as a kid, I've wanted to play as Isaac in Smash. It was one of my favorite games growing up, and it's an RPG that I really got drawn into. I think adding Isaac would be an awesome callback to the great Golden Sun games, and an interesting character that Nintendo still has in its stable. Isaac would be another sword fighter, but the use of Jin and Psy Energy would definitely make for an interesting moveset. I'd love to see what Sakurai would do with this character, aside from his inclusion already as an assist trophy. I want to shout out some other choices that I would love to be added to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, such as Impa, a well-deserved Nintendo character, with a brand new redesign that I think would look perfect in Smash, and also Master Chief, my number one third-party pick that I think would create a super epic ending to the best Smash Bros. Roster we've ever seen. But overall, my personal top pick, fueled by nostalgia, curiosity, and a love for the Golden Sun games, is definitely Isaac. So what did you think about this topic and my picks for each Smash Bros. Game? What are your choices? Leave them below in the comments. I'd love to see what everybody thinks. I know it's not possible to go back and revise history, but I think it would be cool if we could. It's really fun to look back at each game and seeing which character you think would fit the best. How'd you like this discussion? Do you want to see more of these? Let me know in the comments too, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more quality Nintendo content.